Very good morning to you all, distinguished participants, speakers, guests. I am very happy to welcome you all to this flagship webinar on a very current topic, transition to green hydro. We are proud and privileged to have Shri Ajay Shankar as the chief guest, former Secretary, Government of India. Unfortunately, Mr. Shashi Shankar, who was to join, the former secretary, unfortunately, there is some death in his family, so he is not able to join. We have with us other speakers. I think Sandeep will join later. Hydrogen is the fuel for the day. Hydrogen is very important for power sector as well as transport sector. And we are very confident that there will be good development from the hydro, from coal, hydrogen to waste, waste to hydrogen. It is being termed as a fuel of the future. It will help us to achieve the zero emission levels also. We'll move towards that. I'm sure the presentations by the speakers will enrich our knowledge on the future of hydrogen, future of the hydrogen, and how in the years to come, its production will increase. Just a few words now for India Energy Forum. India Energy Forum is a registered NGO with Register of Societies. It's a think tank of experts and highly experienced executives in all verticals of energy. It was established in 2001. We celebrated 20th anniversary in June 2021. The vision of India Energy Forum is to contribute effectively for development of sustainable energy security in India. Our mission is to help evolve a dynamic national energy policy. We were honored and we were given a chance to prepare first policy on the energy. Our objectives are that we serve as independent advocate of the industry, promoting practical solutions to issues affecting sustainable development of energy sector. We are not associated with any organization or any association. We are an independent, non-political, non-commercial organization. Before the COVID, we were organizing physical summits on all verticals of energy. After the COVID effect, when the new team came under the leadership of Mr. Sai, former Secretary Power, it was decided to organize webinars on all verticals of energy. I am happy to report that during the financial year 2022-23, this is our 5th webinar. And since September, this is our 34th webinar on very important topics, out of which the recommendations came for policy and addition of the help and the review taken by the concerned ministries to give push to the development of power sector. I'm sure this webinar on hydrogen will add value to the whole energy sector and will lay the path. How do we travel to achieve higher participation of hydrogen in the power sector and transport sector, particularly, apart from other sectors, so that the target fixed for achieving zero emission is, which is, everybody says is very difficult, but is achievable, and we will be able to achieve. With these few words, may I now invite Shri Popli, former chairman, former CMD IRDA, and chairman of our renewal group, to please introduce the theme and the speakers. Mr. Popli, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. R.V. Shai, sir, President, India Energy Forum, Chief guest for the webinar, Ajay Shankar Saab, distinguished speakers, and distinguished members of India Energy Forum. As we all know, India has committed to net zero target by 2070. Number of developed nations have given a commitment to achieve net zero target by 2050. China has given a commitment to achieve a net zero target by 2060. All these nations have realized the important role that green hydrogen can play in meeting their net zero target. Green hydrogen can help in decarbonizing sectors which are hard to decarbonize using other renewable sources. It can help in decarbonizing sectors like shipping, aviation, steel and cement, besides long distance heavy transport, etc. Green hydrogen is also expected to continue to play a very important role. And it is expected that by 2050, 12% of the total energy, or 12 to 20% of the total energy, will come from green hydrogen. This is what is there in IRENA report, last IRENA report. All the major countries have realized this. And before I introduce our esteemed speakers, I'll briefly give you present status of green hydrogen and installed capacity of electrolyzers. What are the targets by 2030, 2050 in few of the countries, and what is the major challenge, and policy and regulatory pathways, and some inherent advantages of green hydrogen. Very briefly, I'll speak about it for 2 minutes. See, the present status of green hydrogen today, we are globally, we are producing 120 million tons of green hydrogen. And this is likely to go up to 450 to 600 million tons by, sorry, it is not green hydrogen. The total hydrogen production is 120 million tons. And it is likely, green hydrogen production is likely to go up to 450 to 600 million tons by 2050. Today, only 5% of the total hydrogen is green. So today the installed capacity of electrolyzer has gone up beyond 3 gigawatt. It was just 200 megawatt by 2018. So it has seen quite a jump, and it is expected that the electrolyzer capacity is expected to go up to 5,000 gigawatt by 2050. There is going to be a huge jump in this. And therefore, it is expected that green hydrogen is going to play a major role in decarbonization of the global economy. Today, China is the largest producer for green hydrogen. Most of it is great. It is producing almost 24 million tons of hydrogen out of total 120 million tons of the hydrogen that is being produced globally. And they came out with their policy in 2016, and since then they announced more than 30 projects for green hydrogen. And China is expected to have a electrolyzer capacity of 70 to 80 gigawatt by 2030. Similarly, EU has issued its their national hydrogen strategy in 2020 and recognized hydrogen as a technology for achieving policy goals, key technology for achieving policy goals, and set a target of 40 gigawatt. Similarly, Australia has announced 22 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity. So these are all recent trends that we have seen. Now, the major challenge today, like in other countries, in India, is also on the cost of production. Because the cost of production boils down to cost of electrolyzers and cost of green electricity. Even where the cost of green electricity is very, very competitive, the cost of production of green hydrogen varies from $4 to $6 per kg compared to gray hydrogen, which is available at $1.5 to $2. So it is not possible today to get offtake agreements signed for offtake of green hydrogen because there is no perceptible advantage that somebody sees in green hydrogen. Unless there is a policy incentive or a penalty or a obligation, it is not possible to get offtake agreement signed. And unless the offtake agreement is signed, financing becomes a challenge for putting up green hydrogen plants. So this is the situation we are in today. If further, the cost also goes up if the electrolyzer is not located at the demand center. So the cost of computation will add to another $1 to $1.5 per kg. Similarly, if it is to be transported over long distance, the liquefaction cost is even higher at $2 to $3 per kg because it has to be liquefied at minus 253 degrees centigrade. If it is to be converted to ammonia, which is the cheapest way to transport it, then the cost goes up slightly by $0.4 to $0.9 per kg if it is not to be reconverted back to hydrogen. So this is one thing, but so what are the reliable pathways that we feel is, sir, we are at a similar stage as we were in solar PV 10 to 12 years back. We are today in green hydrogen. So what we had seen is we started with blending of solar energy with thermal. Similar thing can be done, sir. We can start blending. Maybe an obligation is put, 10% blending can happen or 5% blending can happen, so that offtake agreements start and some production of green hydrogen also takes place. Then after the market is set, then we can think about auctions, sir. Then the real discovery of green hydrogen prices can take place, and auctions will be a big way to reduce the cost of green hydrogen. Similarly, sir, this gas can also be put into thermal, the fossil fuel gas grids globally also. There is a capacity that we can put almost 20% of green hydrogen into the gas grid. So that is the initial pathway, similar to what we had seen in renewable energy was being put in the same grid, and green grid were put up later. And similar case happens here also, because today for green hydrogen pipeline is only 5,000 kilometers compared to 30 million kilometers of fossil fuel gas pipeline. So the similar trend can be followed here. There are some inherent advantages that we get for production of green hydrogen, because we can use the electrolyzer as a balancing. It can the excess renewable energy when generated can be used for generating hydrogen, and the load of electrolyzer can be varied. So it can help in balancing of the grid. That is one advantage that I see. And there are no countries where hydrogen is being taxed, except France has put a tax on gray hydrogen. They have put a tax of €44 for 44 euros per kg per ton This has been introduced in 2020, and it is expected that this tax will go up to 100 euros per ton by 2030. So this is almost akin to what we had on carbon cess we were using. And this will increase the cost of gray hydrogen by 0.4 kg per ton. That is almost by 20% the cost of the cost of gray hydrogen will go up, making green hydrogen little attractive. So with these words, sir, I would like to introduce the eminent speakers today. Uh, we are very happy that Mr. Ajay Shankar ji has agreed to be the chief guest. He needs, of course, no introduction, but just for information of everybody, he retired as DIPP secretary in 2009, and the incentive and stimulus package that we got after 2008 financial crisis, he played a major role in it. He was also joint secretary, additional secretary in Ministry of Power when Electricity Act 2003 came. He also served for 3 years term in November 2011 to 14 as member secretary, National Manufacturing Competition Commission, which is the advisory body of key captains of industry. He also served as principal advisor in Planning Commission, looking after environment and forest, water and sanitation, besides being on the board of various companies. We have read many of his articles on economic policy and power sector, etc., in national papers. So we are very honored to have you, sir, as chief guest for the webinar. Unfortunately, Mr. Shashi Shekhar had a death in his near family, so he was supposed to attend, and we will be missing him. Then we have Mr. Sandeep Kashyap, who is Chief Operating Officer of Acme Group, who are putting up the largest plant from India of 5 million tons per annum capacity in Oman at a cost of around $2.5 billion. He is a seasoned and accomplished executive with over 2 decades of service and leads a dynamic team of business development, project management, regulatory and legal teams at Acme, and is leading the next phase of growth in solar and green hydrogen in Acme. So we welcome you, Mr. Sandeep ji. Then we have Rajan Vashne. He's from NTPC. We have heard him earlier in a few of our webinars. He's a professional with diverse experience in thermal, RE, and hydrogen and sustainability. And he's very keen on sustainability initiatives. He's MTech from IIT Delhi. He spearheaded the notification for amendment of hydrogen as a permitted fuel under motor vehicle. He has a passion for sustainable development. He will be speaking on waste to energy, waste to hydrogen, with added benefit of reducing air, water, and soil pollution. And then we have Mr. Gemini Das, Executive Engineering G, leader in gas powered engineering. He is a mechanical engineer with over 20 years of experience in technical and leadership roles in GE gas power organization, covering various gas turbine design, science, and testing teams. He is currently the Center of Excellence leader for gas turbine engineering teams. His team plays a key role in design and development of most advanced gas turbine design, including lab and field gas. Gemini Das joined GE in 2001. We welcome Mr. Gemini Das to this webinar. With these words, sir, I thank all of you and back to Mr. Bambani to invite our president for his.
Thank you, Mr. Popli.
Address.
We are happy that you are able to join us from Canada, where the time now is about 2 a.m. there. But we are very happy to see you as fresh as you are always, and have covered all the relevant points. I would again say that Mr. Ajay Shankar is very, very closely associated with India Energy Forum. He has been contributing many of his articles for our flagship publication, Total Energy. He has been a guide as philosopher for the India Energy Forum. And right from the days when he was in the Ministry of Power, India Energy Forum had the opportunity to always consult him, meet him, and take his advice. So we are very fortunate, sir, with your presence as chief guest. May I now request our president, Mr. R.V. Saeed, to please give his presidential address.
Thank you, Mr. Bhambani. Our distinguished chief guest today, Mr. Ajay Shankar, all the eminent speakers. Mr. Bami is there in the audience. Mr. Bami was the founder, president. He has been associated with the India Energy Forum right from its inception. And our vertical chairman, Mr. Popley, who spoke from Canada. I have been in touch with him for organizing this seminar over the last few weeks. And this is the third or fourth seminar on hydrogen that I have the opportunity to participate and speak. I think only a few days back in India International Center, there was a program and I spoke from here through virtual mode. Hydrogen, we have been associated in the industry right from the beginning. Hydrogen is not unknown. Industry has been using hydrogen in a variety of ways and over decades and perhaps century. So hydrogen is a known energy source. But it has assumed great relevance and a big dimension now in the context of climate considerations, because it is completely clean fuel. When I'm talking of it is completely clean fuel, green hydrogen is completely clean fuel. With the amount of hydrogen that is produced today, the clean hydrogen is not even 4 or 5% of that. So 95% plus of hydrogen that is produced is either gray hydrogen or blue hydrogen. So I wanted to get into details of what is gray and what is blue and what is green. So that is three colors of hydrogen have surfaced. I mean, they were always there, but now since the subject has become so contemporary and so relevant that one likes to get into really what's the distinction between gray hydrogen, difference between gray hydrogen, blue hydrogen, and green hydrogen. Today's subject we are trying to focus is the green hydrogen, because green hydrogen really is the clean fuel. Gray produces a lot of carbon. So gray is done mostly, and as I said, that of the entire quantity of hydrogen that is produced, as Mr. Popley mentioned just now, more than 95% is in the green category, is in the gray category. And that is, out of that, most of it is produced from gas. And the amount of carbon it emits is much more, much larger. So therefore, that cannot be an acceptable proposition. Even though it is hydrogen, this is not an acceptable proposition from the point of view of what the whole globe, what the whole world is struggling today to find solution to fossil fuel-based power generation and fossil fuel-based energy consumption, whether in the petroleum sector, gas sector, or coal sector. I mean, a fuel which used to be the darling of energy people. When I entered the energy sector, beginning of 80s, I learned that 21st century will be the century of gas, and gas will be the better fuel, because gas was better in terms of climate issues than coal. But then now whole world is even looking at petroleum fuel and gas as a fuel with suspicion and with some degree of attempt and struggle to find solution to the climate change challenges. So therefore, when you produce gray hydrogen, you produce a lot of carbon dioxide. What is blue hydrogen? When you have carbon capture and utilization, that you produce gas, you produce hydrogen as gray hydrogen, but also treat the carbon, like we are trying to treat carbon in the case of thermal power through carbon capture and utilization. not a very successful strategy so far, very costly, not very much prevalent. All those who are in the thermal power sector are struggling to find solutions on the research side, not yet anywhere near the affordability of this technique. So therefore, when you have carbon capture and utilization, CCU, linked with the gray hydrogen, then that becomes the blue hydrogen. Then when you have hydrogen, you have a little bit of carbon, much reduced carbon, and capture most of it through CCU technologies, and then get the hydrogen that becomes the blue hydrogen. So today we are focusing on just for understanding the issues. Today we are focusing on green hydrogen. And why we are focusing on green hydrogen? Because solar solution that we have got, a wonderful solution that we have got in the world, and that too in last 6-7 years, that is not fully complete. We have solar, but the solar lets us down in the nights, and therefore what do we do? The part solution that India is struggling, other countries are struggling. Those who have the advantage of having wind with them, like India does have. We have 750 gigawatt of potential of solar, but we also have about 300 plus gigawatt of potential of wind. We have done much less than the potential, and we are struggling, and we are trying to target our vision in a manner that all these potentials are finally harnessed. 500 gigawatt to 750 gigawatt of solar, and at present we are in the close vicinity of about 80 gigawatt both solar and wind together. We are much larger in coming years. By 2030, the target is 500 gigawatt plus of renewable. We have done fairly well, but then we have a lot of issues and challenges in managing the operations, managing the system, and the challenges are going to multiply when we improve or increase, enhance considerably the proportion of renewable energy into our system. And it's not only India, whole world. So if the energy profile is going to change substantially from the fossil fuel centric power generation or fossil fuel centric energy consumption, not only power generation, energy consumption as a whole, then obviously we will have a number of challenges to handle the grid management, to handle other issues. Take, for example, if we want to convert our fossil fuel centric transport system, railway system, road transport, highway transport system, and get out considerably to the from the diesel based operations in the railway system as in the highway system. Obviously, there are issues. Of course, India has the dual issue of climate, and it also has the issue of heavy dependence to the extent of more than 85% on the consumption of fossil fuel petroleum products. So we have both the challenges to reduce our carbon footprint and to also reduce our extraordinary burden, excessive burden of foreign exchange purchase through import of more than 85% of what we consume in India on the process. So not only on the power sector, but the other sector. And therefore, a lot of transport is also being thought in terms of transport through electricity. So there you have electricity and then you have transport. So to that extent, you reduce our dependence on import and therefore foreign exchange. But then if we have that electricity, which is primarily today 70% fossil fuel centric, then you have the carbon footprint. So then we have that issue. So therefore, so many options are being sort of studied. So many options are being evaluated. We had a program on pumped storage. We have a program on hydro. Recently, we had a program on hydropower. Hydropower somehow declined over the last 20-25 years when the thermal took over as the larger proportion, much larger and accelerated rate of growth. And therefore, hydro proportion went down and down and down. And when I left the ministry, we were 26%. Earlier, it used to be even more. And now it is close to 12-13%. So 12-13% of capacity of the total installed system in India is only hydro now. So therefore, again, there is a renewed emphasis on hydro. So hydro as a backup, storage hydro as a backup for the solar system that you have during daytime, and you miss it during nights. When you miss it during nights, then you have the challenge. You have the challenge to managing the peak load, you have challenge to managing the grid, etc., etc. So therefore, hydro again is being considered as a very, very important, though it might be costly, though it might take a longer lead time to construct and commission, and still that is being considered seriously as an option to take care of this problem of challenge, and the problem and the challenge that are arising out of massive expansion of the solar system. Another option that is within hydro is being also considered very seriously. Wherever you have hydro projects already operational, or even at the new locations, why don't you have pumped storage? So use the solar energy during daytime. A question arose in one of my addresses recently. A question arose that if you want to do pump storage by using the thermal power to height of water, then what is the fun? Then you use more, you consume more coal, and then generate more carbon dioxide, and then that does not make sense. So therefore, use the solar system, solar power during the daytime, and raise the water level and generate electricity through pump storage. So that is another option that is coming. But all these are in parallel to what is happening globally on the battery itself. And the more we learn about this, the more we talk about this, there have been decline in the prices, but not as sharp as one would have expected. And therefore, and then the battery has other associated problems with environmental issues. Yet battery is not forgotten. So what we will see in coming 10, 15, 20 years is not that this is the only substitute. Hydrogen will not be the only substitute, nor pumped storage will be the only substitute, nor hydro project will be the only substitute. And nuclear itself we are considering as a backup. Nuclear is carbon-free power generation. So nuclear, hydro projects, pumped storage, hydrogen, all these will go and will be there. And the beauty will be that there will be market play. The one that gives us the best advantage and the most optimum cost will prevail. It is there where they struggle globally and struggle in India. Of course, Indian habit has been that we wait only for some other countries to do research, and then we do. I mean, after all, so much of solar we are doing, but mostly we are depending on others to import. Good initiatives have been taken by many public and private sector companies to have domestic manufacturing. This time I am seeing a different type of urge, a different type of thrust, a different type of commitment, a different type of mission at the government level, at the public sector level, and at the private sector level. Very many large organizations, they have announced, even on the subject that we are talking, green hydrogen. They have announced on solar, but they have also announced on green hydrogen. They have also announced on other storage systems that could be required for reducing our carbon footprint over a period of, let's say, the next 40 years. Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister in Glasgow mentioned by the year 2070, we should be net zero. That means we produce carbon, but then there are matching activities which take care of that. So therefore, by 2070, if we have to do that, then all these preparations will have to be mounted. And it is in that context that one is very happy to see that this time we are not having that mindset that wait for China and wait for Western countries to do your research and then you will adopt it. Of course, in global economy, adaptation, networking is important. But this time we are finding financial commitments, a vision, and a project management approach to get into these issues. And good organizations, both in government and public sector and private sector, have come up to get into this. So I definitely hope in 5, 6, 7 years down the line, you will have some breakthrough, maybe globally, even in India, through our own technology development initiatives. Technology development initiatives I have never seen in the last 50 years in the manner it is being launched at this point of time. So for we energy professionals, that's a matter of great satisfaction and happiness that this goes on. So that means for once, then we can say, take for example, on solar manufacturing, a lot more is happening in India, so that our dependence on China and others reduces. If we have to do 750 gigawatt of solar, can we depend only on import from outside? I mean, we have messed up in our efforts on the petroleum sector, resulting in 85% of import. We need not mess up similar way on energy management and other sectors. And that initiative, those initiatives which have been taken, give us hope that things will be entirely different and significantly different from the past. I think with these few words, I will come back again after question, answer, and presentations. But may I now request Mr. Ajay Shankar? He has been a very distinguished colleague with me. I think he was the longest. I was there all through, and ever since I joined and left, Ajay was always with me. So I think when I spoke to him, he didn't take even a few seconds to confirm that he will be happy to be here as a chief guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sai. Thank you for laying the carpet for discussion. You rightly said that India has traveled a long way to do their own innovations, do not depend on the technology from outside. One of the objectives of the India Energy Forum is to work closely with India and international organizations. And in this direction, we have signed a MOU with the International Solar Alliance to develop solar projects in India and abroad. The MOU was signed by Mr. Sahi on behalf of India Energy Forum and Mr. Ajay Mathur from India on behalf of International Solar Alliance. In that way, we also are going ahead with the present times that we have to work closely with other associations to promote all the verticals of the energy. May I now, Mr. Ajay Shankar has been associated with India Energy Forum for many, many years, and we have been always seeking his advice and assistance in promoting our activities. We are publishing his articles in every issue of our Total Energy magazine. So now I have the honor to request Mr. Ajay Shankar to please give the chief guest address.
Shahi ji, Ambani ji, Bami ji, and many other distinguished stalwarts present today, many of whom I have known personally and interacted with for now maybe a couple of decades. So thank you for giving me the privilege of being with you here today on this very discussion on this very important topic. Now, hydrogen and green hydrogen have become the flavor of discussion globally in the last 2 years, basically. Because prior to that, this was an issue under discussion. Japan was a country which was pushing for hydrogen economy quite systematically for over 10 years. But in the rest of the world, this was something on the margins, if I may put it. So the first question that occurs to me is, why has hydrogen suddenly become center stage? And the answer to that lies in the fact that for the first time, there is a certain seriousness of purpose in leaders across the world, leaders in technology, leaders in business, leaders in academia, think tanks, as well as the political class, that the time for postponing action on climate change is gone, and we now need to act as urgently and as quickly as possible. Now, this is a change only in the last 4 or 5 years. And it has happened only because extreme weather conditions are being experienced across the world with increasing frequency. So when England had summer temperatures comparable to India on a couple of days, or France had a heat wave where many people died because they didn't have homes built for high temperatures, there was a sudden change in the attitude of the elites in the world. And we started hearing of net zero. So France had a law, UK had a law, EU is now thinking of net zero by 2050. Now, the science of climate change has been very clear for a long time that we cannot live with global warming. But somehow action by leaders across the world has been quite feeble. Then we have now a clear consensus in the scientific community that global warming beyond 1.5 degrees would impose unacceptable costs on human civilization as we know it. And the facts are such that it appears that 1.5 is on the verge of being breached by what is happening. Now, if the world is serious about getting to net zero as soon as possible, then what is the pathway? The one pathway which is now pretty well established, and the momentum of that is visible in many countries. Some countries, the progress has been more rapid, some countries has been less rapid, and which is that you decarbonize electricity. And how do you decarbonize electricity? You go for renewables, you go for solar, you go for wind, solar and wind plus storage, you go for hydro, you can go for nuclear, because France has 70% of its electricity coming from nuclear. And the other thing is that you try and electrify as many sectors of the economy as possible so that they move away from fossil fuels. So transport is one good example where we are seeing this transition, where with EVs arriving across the world, the transition away from fossil fuels in transport is, on surface transport, is ongoing at a rapid pace. Norway had 70% EVs sold this year, and the European Parliament is thinking of passing a resolution that by 2035, the internal combustion engine production and sales should stop. UK is thinking of 2030 as a goal. But once you decarbonize electricity and as many other sectors of the economy as possible, we are still left with very critical areas of our modern industrial economy where substitution of coal or gas with electricity is technologically today not feasible. Now, for these so-called hard-to-abate sectors, green hydrogen is the technical solution available today. And which is why the whole world is suddenly embracing hydrogen and green hydrogen and talking of the hydrogen economy as if it was the most important thing that is required in terms of thought, policy, and leadership. So Germany last year announced that they would be global leaders in the green hydrogen economy or the hydrogen economy. They put in some, many billions of euros as support for projects. They're doing about 62 projects. Japan has been pushing for a hydrogen economy for over a decade. In the case of Japan, this push has been also driven by the fact that their natural endowments for renewable energy are very limited. And therefore, they felt that they need to import green hydrogen from other parts of the world and make the transition, even in the electricity sector, away from fossil fuels, and the rest of the economy away from fossil fuels. And therefore, technologically, they have been putting in the maximum effort for the hydrogen economy. Now, so if we look at this perspective, then we need hydrogen for the hard-to-abate sectors, for decarbonizing the production of steel, cement, fertilizer, for shipping, for aviation. So these are the areas where we need hydrogen, and we need green hydrogen if we are to achieve net zero as soon as possible. So the projects across the world, or the strategy that is being followed across the world, has a few parallel streams. And I think it would be good for us to pay attention to what is happening elsewhere and then craft our policies accordingly and adjusting it to suit our needs. So if I take the German example, they have supported actual projects across the entire value chain for the use of hydrogen. So it would mean, sort of storage, transport of hydrogen, then use of hydrogen in all the economic activities that are there, heavy duty trucks, where electricity today is not a viable option for carrying heavy duty transport for long distances. And also then the other areas of the industrial economy. In fact, Airbus has started work on creating an aircraft engine which uses hydrogen. So the strategy there is that we master the technology of actual application of and use of hydrogen across all the hard-to-abate sectors discover costs, prove technologies through private projects, learn the debugging required for large-scale application of known technologies, and also innovate and be well positioned to make the big transition away from fossil fuels in the hard-to-abate sectors. And the strategy there is that I use hydrogen, because using hydrogen in all the hard-to-abate sectors is one part of the process. And the other is that I learn how to make green hydrogen cheaper. But till I do that, there is no harm done in using gray hydrogen to master the downstream uses of hydrogen, because switching from gray hydrogen to green hydrogen is something which happens as soon as you are prepared to pay the higher cost. Even today, you can make green hydrogen and you can use it across the board. But the real challenge in the rest of the world is to use hydrogen downstream in the hard-to-abate sectors. As far as electricity is concerned, right now, hydrogen is attractive only as a means of storage or a substitute for fossil fuels for either very decentralized locations or for seasonal storage. Because if you use renewables plus known storage technologies, you do not get seasonal storage for full decarbonization of the electricity sector. So when you reach a stage when you want full decarbonization of the electricity sector, hydrogen would be needed. But till you are at the last lap of the race to decarbonize electricity fully, other available technologies are cost effective and therefore worth pursuing, which is what we are doing. Now, given this global context, if I now look at where we are, then Shahiji put it very well that for a change, we want to be in the frontier globally. We want to be leaders. We want to be developers. We do not want the rest of the world to do everything and then follow in their footsteps and import everything and do everything as we are doing in the solar mission. So we are at the right juncture at which we can try and be at the global frontier. And we have the possibility of putting together policy instruments and programs which, in a cost-effective manner, can allow us to move towards global leadership positions, because India has matured. The technological ability, the capacity of firms, the capacity of young researchers is now globally competitive. So if we get our act together, then certainly there is no reason why we should not be on the global frontier along with China or Korea or even Germany or Japan or the US. So the issue to be discussed and debated and ideas crystallized with some degree of consensus to be presented to government is what are the building blocks that we need, what are the instruments that we need, and how do we go about becoming leaders globally in the new hydrogen economy, and therefore well positioned to make a swift, cost-effective transition away from fossil fuels altogether towards net zero. Now, within the Indian situation, how do I see things as being the right way to go forward? But these are tentative ideas. Each of them needs a lot more discussion, also with hard facts, numbers, and costs. Because one thing which the world has shown us in the last 15, 20 years is that it is very difficult to predict where technology will go and very difficult to predict where costs will go. I mean, I remember when the National Solar Mission was launched, the price was 17 rupees a unit. And everybody agreed that the announcement of 20,000 megawatts by this year is unachievable and unaffordable. But today we crossed that goal many years back, and we are now looking at actually achieving 50% of renewable energy by 2030, or 450 GW of renewable energy capacity by 2030. And all this was unimaginable even 5 years back. So in the hydrogen economy, we must be prepared mentally for unexpected developments, but the challenge is to take the right steps so that we can succeed wherever there is potential for success. Now, one area where the rest of the world has not done that much work, and I think we have a potential of getting into the global frontier very quickly is getting green hydrogen from bio-waste. And there we have a challenge because we have not made all the investments needed in handling bio-waste. We are at the bottom of the global ranking on environment management. So if we put in enough resources and put in enough effort, we can pursue two parallel goals. 100% sewage treatment, 100% use of cow dung for conversion into modern energy. And there we can try and get into green hydrogen straight away, because the building block can be used for conventional energy, and with a little effort, you can add another module and get green hydrogen. And these technologies are globally mature. They are mature for micro level decentralized application as well as macro level. So I think we need a national mission of focus on using bio-waste, that is human sewage, as well as cow dung waste. We have the largest population in the world and the largest cow population in the world, and convert that into useful energy and have building blocks for green hydrogen. And so we discover price. And my hunch is that if we get our act together, we will produce very cheap green hydrogen in a matter of few years. That, I think, needs highest priority, higher than all the others. But this is not fashionable, because handling human waste and cow dung waste is not fashionable. It's not glamorous. I suggest we center stage. The next is that we already have a lot of gray hydrogen under production. So here what we need to do is to have two verticals or two prisms through which we craft our programs and policies and incentives. So one would be using gray hydrogen to the extent we can get it, consider it as a transition fuel, and start working on downstream uses. So downstream uses is the cement industry, the steel industry, the fertilizer industry, shipping. Now, I personally don't see why we as a country should not have the ambition, in partnerships with others across the world, to develop an engine for the ships as well as for the aircraft which uses hydrogen, which is made in India and is then used in conventional ships. And we can even attempt designing an aircraft which will use hydrogen as a fuel, because nobody in the world has done it as yet. So if we start along with the rest of the world, there is no reason why we may not succeed along with the best in the world. I think we need that level of ambition. And I think we have to take inspiration from China. I say that with some reluctance. But 91, we were technologically at par. Today, they are challenging America's leadership for technology. Now, there's nothing that they have which we don't have or didn't have. So I think now we need that level of ambition that we will challenge the world in technology in frontier areas. And I think an aircraft engine and the aircraft is certainly something where we are starting on a level playing field with the rest of the world. But cement and steel are industries where we can begin straight away. Now, each of these industries, the problem is that in the market today, if I'm a steel producer, why should I incur an extra cost for using hydrogen, even gray hydrogen? Similarly, if I'm a cement manufacturer, how do I do it? So this is where I think government needs to come out with a program that as a steel manufacturer, if I do a minimum size pilot plant, I get the requisite subsidy or tax breaks or whatever, so that I am not at a disadvantage to my competitor or vis-a-vis another plant of mine which is using fossil fuels. So in established industries, I think the minimum scale of application of hydrogen for proving technologies, discovering costs is something that can be started straight away. In parallel is the effort of the supply chain for hydrogen, irrespective of how it is produced. So storage, transportation, and then being used elsewhere, that is something we again need to master. And again, being a poor country or a resource scarce country, we should in each case look at the minimum scale at which we learn in terms of technology, in terms of deployment, in terms of business practices and discover costs. I think we should be very prudent and not chase glamorous numbers that this is what we have done or this is what we will do. Our game should be to be on the global frontier in technology and cost technology developed in India or technology brought from elsewhere. We are a globalized world. And many North European companies are working on these technologies, but they don't have the market or the scale or a location for production where potential for reducing costs is very large. So what China did with solar was that they partnered all the German companies, learned their technology, and then made all of them bankrupt. So in 2007-8, Germany dominated the global solar market, and by 2015-16, they're gone. So the time taken was just about 7-8 years. So there's no reason why we in India should not in 5, 6, 7 years achieve again the kind of breakthroughs that China has been achieving successfully and successively in different sunrise technologies. Now, on the actual production of hydrogen. So the production of hydrogen numbers should flow from two ways of analyzing it. One is the downstream use in all the areas where I think we need to start using hydrogen and bear the cost of using hydrogen as a more expensive substitute for fossil fuels. Do it at a small scale. We did it with the solar program, 17 rupees to begin with. It is now cheaper than coal, and less than 10 years or 12 years. So we attempt the same thing. And in parallel, we work on, again, the minimum scale in a competitive fashion where we can produce green hydrogen using renewables so that the electrolyzers and that whole cycle of using solar energy, electrolyzers and producing green hydrogen in a manner which is the most competitive in terms of cost vis-a-vis the rest of the world. Because again, everybody is starting from scratch, and going by the pronouncement of our investors and our corporates, I think they have the confidence that they can make green hydrogen in the most cost-effective manner in the world, and I share their confidence and optimism. So we need to move in that direction, and there are two areas which will make these investments viable. One is the domestic market. So government will need to think of policy measures which provide some volume or scale in the domestic market. But green hydrogen is also exportable, and most of our large firms are also looking at exports. And if they succeed in the international market, then obviously we have arrived. So I think we need to look at green hydrogen, especially the electrolyzer bit, making it India, working on the technology in India to make it more cost effective, more efficient, etc. And all that is doable. So it also, what I'm suggesting is that also government needs to consider seriously a PPP mode in the hydrogen economy. Because so far government has shied away from supporting technology development after the economic reforms of 91 in the private sector. So government has been doing technology development and spending huge sums of money in the defense sector. But I think in the new sunrise hydrogen economy, it would be a good idea to find a fair, transparent way and in a competitive manner, promotion of new technologies in the entire value chain for the hydrogen economy, starting from electrolyzers, green hydrogen, and downstream uses, and achieve and replicate in some senses and improve on what all the others are doing. I mean, Korea, Japan, China, Germany, they're all working with their private firms to see how jointly that nation can be on the global frontier of the new hydrogen economy. I think we can be as good as them. We can succeed in this decade. And if we do succeed in this decade, then I think we may find it realistic and plausible, what I, for one, have been advocating as a minority voice of one, that we can be net zero by 2047 and beat the rest of the world. But doing that will depend on how well we succeed on green hydrogen in this decade or on the hydrogen economy in this decade, because Prime Minister's announcements of what is going to happen in the electricity sector by 2030 in India is certainly paving the foundations for complete decarbonization of electricity in the next decade. So it's the hard to abate sectors. If we are confident that we got it right, our costs are good, then we can gallop along with the rest of the world. So, but to end, I would say that each of these building blocks, because it's a very vast canvas, this hydrogen economy, each one we need some clarity and consensus that this is the minimum size of plant that we need to test a technology, to have a pilot project. This is the cost differential between using hydrogen and working with fossil fuels. And how do we subsidize it either through tax breaks or explicit cash, etc. And then on the other part, which is the supply chain for hydrogen, from production to usage, how do we master the costs and the technology in each one of these? Because here again, there are cost cutting potential in India, because we've just done great work in the ultra critical power plant, where we worked with materials which can have much higher pressure and temperatures. So the hydrogen economy really needs higher, materials which can handle higher pressures and which are safe and which can be made maybe more cheaply than in India than anywhere else in the world. So that's something we should pursue. So one is that storage and transport part, and the other is the electrolyzer part. And again, I would say that we should not look at wanting to reinvent the wheel, and also we should not look at only having joint ventures and technology transfers. We should do both. And again, the challenge is to be technically smart enough to figure out where to put in valuable Indian money to improve on technology which we can get on license basis from the rest of the world. So I think there's a lot of professional work going into details, waiting to be done, and then explained to government so they can take the right decisions. And if they take the right decisions, we may also find that this whole mission is easily affordable. Because then, as I said, the solar mission began, nobody thought we could do it or afford it. So we have good experience behind us, and we have far more developed country today with far more talent and ability technologically and professionally. So I'm very optimistic that we can be in the global frontier, and we should aim to be there in this decade itself. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Mr. Shankar. You have really brought out, because there has been a shift in the thinking in the whole, I would say, country's population. We always used to be dependent on the technology, but today we take initiative. What we have done in solar, I'm sure we will repeat it into the hydrogen. And we have learned hard ways. Our younger generation has learned from the past that we cannot be depending on the innovations to be done by others and only adopt. We have to invent the technology and adopt it then. I'm sure what we have done for solar, we will do the same path for the hydrogen. And what you have suggested, the dream will come true. That is my perception. Thank you very much. Now I request Mr. Popley to please invite the other speakers.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Actually, unfortunately, we are missing Mr. Shashi Shekhar. He would have added, because he is the Director General of Independent Green Hydro Producers Association. But nevertheless, we will have the inputs from the other speakers.
Yep. Thank you, Bambani sir. Now, may I request Mr. Sandeep Kashyap, who is Chief Operating Officer of ACME Group, to share his experiences, number one, on the Oman plant that they are building up. That is one of the largest of 5 million tons per annum. And also the challenges they faced in India and the opportunities they saw in Oman, and whatever his experiences are and what he feels the policy inputs are required for making India a vibrant hydrogen economy. So over to Mr. Sandeep.
Thank you so much, Mr. Popley, Mr. Shahi, Mr. Bambani, and Mr. Bami, and other distinguished guest speakers and members of India Energy Forum. Thank you so much for inviting me on this platform to share our experience. I'll just take a minute to introduce ACME. We are one of the leading solar power developers in the country with a portfolio of around 6.5 gigawatt, which we have developed over 7 years. And now we are developing further internationally in terms of green hydrogen and green ammonia. So we started our journey in terms of green hydrogen way back in 2019, when we actually achieved the solar prices of 2 rupees 44 paisa in one of the SECI tenders. And that was the time we realized that the price points are such that now we can really look at green hydrogen or green ammonia being a viable option going forward with the reduction in prices. And I'm very happy to share that we were the first ones to put up world's first uh, semi-commercial pilot in Rajasthan for green hydrogen and green ammonia. And now we are delivering green molecules to the industry from this plant in Bikaner. This is the first plant which we did in 2021. And it also gave us a lot of learnings in terms of what the challenges are, both in technology as well as the other processes which are involved in production of green hydrogen and green ammonia. So this is the first integrated plant which is powered by solar power, and then we are converting, we are taking that power through an electrolyzer and splitting water to make green hydrogen. And after that, we are taking that green hydrogen in the ammonia synthesis process, wherein we are taking nitrogen from the air and then converting into the green ammonia, which is being currently supplied to the industry. Based on the learnings which we've had, we are currently working on a very large project, which is a 1.2 million metric ton per year kind of a capacity in Oman, with an investment of almost 5.5 billion US dollars. So the project is under way, and we expect the phase one of the project to be ready by December 2023. And by 2025, the complete capacity will be operational. Now, some of the key things which I would like to share over here, like Mr. Mobley said, why Oman and why not in India, right? So there were there were 2-3 things which were happening parallelly, if we really see. When we see the global market with a lot of countries getting into a net zero kind of commitments, including India, whosoever were looking at green hydrogen and green ammonia as products, they were not able to find even a single producer of green hydrogen, green ammonia globally. And therefore, there was a lot of opportunity for the industry to start looking at where can we produce green hydrogen or green ammonia at the lowest cost. And since it is driven by the renewable energy, wherever we get the solar insolation maximum across the globe, those are the places where we are able to generate these green hydrogen and green ammonia at the lowest cost. And Oman definitely was one of those territories, along with Middle East and other countries like Australia and Chile. These are the places where solar insolation is almost 20-25% more compared to India, that too in the Rajasthan region, which we have. And one of the key things was to be competitive globally. So that was the reason we chose at that point in time Oman as a region to start our first production plant. We all know that the cost of generation in the Middle East is almost 1.2 cents now, which is the lowest in the world. So therefore, making green hydrogen or green ammonia in these countries is the most competitive way of producing this. Having said so, there are certain advantages which India has compared to these countries, wherein we have access to large land parcels. We have one of the most optimized execution costs in terms of such projects. And then we are also in the top 3 or 4 countries, or I would say 5 countries across the world, where our electricity cost through renewables is the lowest. So having said so, we are currently working in with various state governments and exploring potential of putting such large projects, right? Primarily, initially focusing on the export markets, because globally, there are countries who are looking at such projects wherein they can finalize their capacities or book their capacities, which they plan to introduce in 2025 or 2026 or 2027. And in the last 14 months, if you would see, really there have been announcements of almost 140 million metric tons of green hydrogen and green ammonia projects across the world. Now, from the India perspective, if we really see what we are able to gather is one, on the policy front, there are certain initiatives by the government which can really make us more competitive globally because of certain advantages which government in India we have. One of the biggest advantage which we have in India is we have a very large grid to the extent of we consume power to the extent of 210 million units a day or at a particular given point in time, 210 gigawatt kind of transaction that happens on the grid. So grid banking is something which is very much possible in India in terms of green hydrogen, which may not be possible in countries like Middle East, Oman, or other countries where the grids are much, much smaller. And so this is one of the things which makes India, better placed compared to the rest of the world in terms of making green hydrogen 24 hours under banking arrangements compared to the other countries where we will have to really work only for 9 to 12 hours to make green hydrogen. And then, it's kind of a batch process. On the market side, I would like to share today, ammonia as a product has got a market of around 200 million metric tons per year. The other sectors which are emerging very fast is on the power side. Japan has started trials of co-firing ammonia with the thermal power plants, which is going to be a very large sector. The third is the shipping industry, where all the new ships post 2030 are going to be either ammonia driven or methanol driven, and the orders have been placed by the major shipping companies on these fuels. If we add up all, we believe there is going to be a market of around 4 to 500 million metric ton of only ammonia. Leave apart green hydrogen for the steel, cement, and other industries of the CGD networks. And an investment for putting up a 1 million metric ton of green ammonia plant goes to the extent of $6 billion. And if we have to convert 500 million metric tons of market over the next 30 years, the kind of business opportunity it creates, right, for the whole world in terms of this sector is multi-trillion dollars kind of an opportunity. Over here, the government of India has done phase one on the policy part, wherein they have recognized that banking is one area which needs to be looked at, and mandates is another area to introduce some demand in the government within the country in certain sectors. Urea is one sector where we are net importers, and we are importing around 3 to 4 million metric ton of ammonia every year, wherein we don't have to do anything because ammonia is transportable and we can simply start producing ammonia. So the only question is, there is a gap in price of what is available for gray versus what green can do today. Having said so, the same gray ammonia which was available a couple of years back at $300 per metric ton, during these recent times with Ukraine war being in place, we could see the price of the same ammonia went up to $1,400 per metric ton. So such a large price variation, and as a country, we had no choice. Probably this is the time after defense. This was the largest budget item on our country in terms of government subsidies. With green, at least one thing is sure, that the prices are going to be stable for the next 25 years, which we have seen in the solar sector or the wind sector. And therefore, blending it to a certain percentage will not really create that high kind of a price barrier initially and going forward, like we have seen in the solar journey, starting from 17 rupees going at 2 rupees 25 paisa. Now the second phase is going to start starting from 225 or 250 as the base case for solar, which is the cheapest cost of power today, and taking it further And there are certain areas which are being, recognized, wherein with the same kind of cost, we can really further reduce our cost of generation of power if we are exporting to the world, wherein we can have access to international loans and hedging of dollars is not required. The same renewable energy which we are producing at 225 or 230 today, we can produce at 170, 175. And the moment we get to that price levels, the whole economics change. Just to give you a small perspective, we need 57 units of power to generate 1 kg of hydrogen. And at 1 rupee 75 paisa, our cost of generation of hydrogen, including the capex of solar, would not be more than $1. And then we have to amortize only the cost of additional capex, which is spent on hydrogen, which is going to be to the probably 75 cents or so. So if we are able to produce for the globe sitting in India, I believe less than $2 is which is achievable today, with certain benefits to the industries and banking policy, wherein we are able to utilize the capex over 24 hours for such plants. So this is our learning, and this is what we are looking forward to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Kashyap. You have actually given more optimistic a scenario, which we thought it is possible. It should be possible only if we achieve 400, 500 gigawatt by 2030. We reduce the cost of renewable energy, and then maybe India becomes a global source for production of hydrogen as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your inputs. Now, may I request Mr. Rajan Vashne to speak on very important topic that Mr. Ajay Shankar ji also touched on, from waste to green hydrogen. Over to Mr. Rajan.
Good afternoon, respected guests and members of the forum. Shahi Sahab, Ajay Shankar Sahab has given good perspective. Sandeep ji has given good perspective. But I will slightly give a different perspective on basically waste to hydrogen. Waste is such a thing that it is being accumulated, put in landfills, affecting our water, air, and other resources, soil, etc. It is locking our landfill sites, costly landfill sites. And if we do it in a proper manner, use these so-called wastes as resources, and use these important resources to produce various important fuels, biofuels, hydrogen, etc., we can save our costs on so-called waste management and on fossil fuels. And rather, we can be cutting our imports, and further even exports can be done of green hydrogen, green ammonia, etc. Now I will share my screen. As we know that hydrogen has to be used for combating climate change. Moreover, top Indian cities, top 15 out of top 20 most polluted cities are in India, and most of them are in northern part of NCR and India. So this waste is also contributing towards this pollution. And if waste is tackled to make hydrogen, which is a sustainable fuel, and in a sustainable manner it can be done, then a lot of advantages can accrue. Climate change is a 11 trillion opportunity or a $35 trillion risk for India, Deloitte report says. And electricity, although comprises only 18% of the energy needs, but contributes to 50% or 49% pollutions, greenhouse gas emissions. So world over, there is 2 billion tons of waste accumulated, and with the rising level of standard and rising urbanization, waste accumulation is increasing day by day. If we can convert waste to hydrogen, we can produce green hydrogen at radically lower costs. India also has a lot of waste and is increasing day by day. MSW, agro waste, animal dung, waste, water sludge, poultry waste, agroforestry, and now this sustainable foresting as citizen forests has also, city forests have also come up. And from those regular bio-waste can be used for, or biomass can be used for producing hydrogen. Many companies are producing Napier grass and other things in waste landfills and land sites, and can convert that to biomethane and then to biohydrogen. Hydrogen is used typically in various applications. Even in hard to abate sectors, it can be used to decarbonize them. We have seen that in Tokyo Olympics and in China Winter Olympics, sustainable use of hydrogen for players' facilities, buses, and games village has been done. So applications are quite tested. When waste goes to landfills or is burnt, then it creates SPM and other CO2 and other harmful gases. And even if it is not burnt, the organic waste decomposes and liberates methane. Methane is 84 times more potent GHG than even CO2. So in any case, we have to control methane emission, and also we have to tackle waste. So our efforts should be towards meeting both the goals, and the same money can be utilized in a very best manner. So waste to hydrogen meets our ideal solution. It reduces GHG reduction. It gives India energy security, cleaner air, water and soil, waste management, cut imports. And so we should go in for it. And many countries and many companies across the world are doing it. IPR, Indian Plasma Institute, has developed plasma gasification. Pensaco, a US company, has developed gasification plus pyrolysis in a single reactor, and patented process is in a containerized form producing hydrogen. Many other companies like SGH2, Shell, Revelio, Chinook, Polycrack, an Indian company, and they have developed methodologies for green hydrogen from waste. And a lot more companies are there. We'll see some of these in the course of presentation. Pensaco is making carbon negative hydrogen, because when we make hydrogen from waste and capture the carbon in the form of solid carbon or biochar, then if biochar is used in the soil, it reduces fertilizer need, which again comes from ammonia, most of the fertilizers, and ammonia again requires a lot of resources and a lot of gray hydrogen. So if we can save our fertilizer needs, which biochar application as soil amendment reduces fertilizer needs by even 70-80%. So in a way, and also it increases soil water retention and microorganisms in the soil ecosystem, and so gives vegetation also. So a lot of CO2 is offset by this. And they say their carbon intensity score is -209 or higher. These are some of the properties they have mentioned in their brochure. Now, H2 Industries, a US company, again is handling two big projects. They have signed up two big projects. In Egypt, this is a 3-4 billion plant, 4 MMT of organic waste, and non-recyclable plastic will be converted to 3 lakh tons of hydrogen per year. And that much hydrogen would require 4 gigawatt renewable hydrogen if we go by electrolysis route. And even for this renewable hydrogen, the solar and wind require a lot of space and lot of minerals, lot of processing in silicate to silicon, and in wind turbines, thousands of tons of concrete and other rare and amounts of rare earths also are used. So how green they are, that needs to be certified or checked. In Oman, H2 Industries is converting 1 MMT MSW, and it will take fresh waste as well as landfill waste and will produce 67,000 tons of hydrogen. Their technology includes integrated thermolysis, and they also generate power out of it. SGH2, again a US company, and this is doing a project on, they rather had a project already for 7 years running in Pennsylvania. Now it has been dismantled, and they are doing it at Lancaster of the same capacity. 42,000 ton waste per annum, and this will be converted to 3,800 tons of hydrogen per annum. So in this, they have a plasma gasification technique, and they reach the temperature of 4,000 degrees through plasma torches, and through a catalyst, they convert the waste to its molecular compounds, and without any ash or anything, and pure hydrogen is biosyn gas is made, and from that by PSA hydrogen of 6 9 purity is achieved. Waste to H is another company. This has another system. It heats ceramic beads to around 1000 degree temperature, and from that these beads are there dispersed in the waste, so that even temperature is there, and from this 1000 degree only they are able to reform and make hydrogen out of it, and the char is separated and is again burnt for making those 1000 degree temperature. They have containerized system as well as a big system. Containerized system has around 1 ton per day capacity and generates 30 kg to 120 kg hydrogen depending on the waste. And the scalable stationary solution has 50 tons per day capacity. Now, big companies, Japanese companies, Toyota, Itavni, and JGC are also tying up for making hydrogen from plastics. Their first plant is going to commission in 2025. Other Babcock and Wilcox and other companies are also going in for this, and many governments across the world are supporting these companies by giving them grants, loan guarantees, etc. Now, even from waste, if we make biogas, some companies are even doing dry reforming and making hydrogen directly from biogas also. This is one company, RGH2. This is an Austrian company, and it has a process, patented process, in which it makes bio CO2, biohydrogen, and bio nitrogen also in the process, and this can be used, hydrogen and nitrogen can be used to make ammonia, and also biochar. Again, all this are highly carbon negative things. So there are various methods to produce hydrogen from waste. Anaerobic digestion, and that makes biomethane, and from that we can have either steam methane reforming or methane splitting or methane pyrolysis, or even from biogas we can directly make hydrogen. Then gasification is there, then plasma gasification is there, pyrolysis is there, and one other technique is microbial electrochemical cell, MECC, which also I will describe. And these things, MECC is a new technique. Many companies are working on it, and one Indian company has filed has received patent also. It doesn't need electricity supply in converting waste to hydrogen. Rather, electricity can be generated also. So all these techniques promise very cost-effective hydrogen, maybe even less than $0.50 per kg. Here, organic waste is converted to raw biogas, and then it can be scrubbed to biomethane, and biohydrogen is made through SMR. Many SMR vendors are there across the world. Biotech USA is doing it at charges of $2 per kg of hydrogen if we supply biomethane, water, and electricity. High Gear, another company, is doing it. Now it is named ZBEC. And even one vendor in India, GPS Renewables, has tied up with it. It can give hydrogen SMRs in the range of 20 kg to 2000 kg per day. Both the companies are doing turnkey selling as gas as a service also. And even Indian vendors are doing SMRs and at much cheaper cost, around less than half the cost. Like Hygiene system of 100 kg per day is costing rupees 7 crore, and one Chinese company Chengdu TCWI 500 kg per day system is costing rupees 8 crore. And Indian companies which are designing, they can make these 100 kg system in less than 2 crores, and this 500 kg less than 4 crores. Then the second method is methane splitting or biomethane pyrolysis. In this, hydrogen is generated, also solid carbon is generated, and depending on the processing, it can be in the form of various applications like graphene and all, and which can be used in various, like carbon black is used in tires, and graphite is used in electrodes, carbon nanofibers are used in various applications, and even artificial diamond can be used, can be made, and also this carbon can be used as biochar for increasing the soil fertility, or even for water filtration also. Then these are some of the companies doing methane pyrolysis at large scale. Monolith USA, they are making a plant, and US government is giving them loan guarantee. Similarly, this Hazer Australia is doing through another process. Then C0 is doing through molten salt methane pyrolysis method, pulse methane pyrolysis by Econa Power, and even fuel cells, direct carbon fuel cell are being used to do it. Levidian Loop 50 in the form of shipping container, they are doing methane pyrolysis, and they have
Mr. Pasne, please, 5 minutes more.
Yeah, and they have signed a 700 million deal to deploy 500 loops across UAE. And this is their system in which 10 kg methane gives 2 kg hydrogen and 3.8 kg graphene. Graphene is so costly, it is more than 10,000 rupees per kg. So all these methods through methane splitting are saving the environment also, and making it sustainable process also, waste management as well as hydrogen production. And if the components, the byproducts are valued properly, then hydrogen cost can come out even negative also. This is a Indian innovation. Paganism Innovations have patented Rudra splitter in a decentralized way. 8 kg CNG can be converted to 2 kg hydrogen and 6 kg graphene. Then gasification, Boson Energy is doing a project in Germany. And if we go to financial analysis, we can get the cost as low as 30 rupees per kg. And whereas in electrolysis, we get the cost as 300 rupees per kg. But the MECC technique is still in the TRL 5 level, but other techniques are in the TRL 8-9 level and available commercially. I have discussed about MECC advantages already. Waste eating microbes, and if we can scale it up to 50-ton level, we can get hydrogen at 40 rupees per kg if we value the components also, byproducts also. And all other things require a lot of costly material imports, elements import, but hydrogen technology requires very little imports. Regarding policy front, carbon intensity should be measured instead of color and should be certified also. Funding of pilots should be done, and if some pilots get success, then it creates a lot of change and more entrepreneurs come to finance new developments. De-risked and long-term finance by banks, institution, agencies should be there, and they should take a portfolio approach, not as individual project approach. Carbon regulator, market regulator, and carbon regulations and carbon trading should be established as early as possible. Carbon credits will help financing the green economy. Policies supporting decentralized waste to hydrogen should be there. This reduces transportation, and like in waste, we can see that we can produce 2 kg hydrogen at the site also, wherever it is required. So lot of transportation and storage costs get cut, and we get real use hydrogen cost at around $1. Just like RE, banking of biomethane should be allowed, and different points of injection in lines should be there for withdrawal and putting in bio H2 and bio CH4. This will help in using our already made CGD lines as conduit and storage for hydrogen. Stable and bold policies with tax incentives should be there. Demand creation by target setting for using green hydrogen across various sectors, including hard to abate sectors. Dollar-linked contracts for green hydrogen, green ammonia should be there. PLI incentives for SMRs, methane splitters should be there, and other applications like direct biogas to hydrogen. Ecosystem development with better coordination between academia, startups, research, industry, and finance should be there. Researchers should not be bound only by writing papers and then their fellowship should continue. They should get credits for industrial participation, supporting ecosystem, and attending events for ecosystem building, and having coordination for that also. Credit worthy aggregators like SECI should be there for demand aggregation. All these things can help in cutting down the costs. So major advantages are that hydrogen from waste can be stored, and because waste is available everywhere and can be made and as and when needed. Major components can be manufactured in India. It needs lower capital investment, promises rural development, as farmers can combine, 10-12 farmers can combine and produce biomethane and then produce biohydrogen, and then they can have a good income also. Rural microgrids, rural electrification can be there. One other thing is to get the round the clock renewable power, OTEC should be used, ocean thermal energy should be used, should be explored, and this can help in again giving us in lot small scale space in sea without affecting our land. Say 500 gigawatt plant can also be made in our say Chennai and other side. We have a long coast line, and good opportunities are there for OTEC usage. Hydrogen from waste is greener than green because it prevents contamination of soil, water, and air, mitigates GHG, and returns carbon to the soil, improving fertility, preventing soil erosion, landslides, etc. So hydrogen from waste is a good driver for development, it can address most of the SDG goals directly or some as indirectly. So it is a multi-decade opportunity. Green H2 can integrate RE sustainably and provide energy across sectors. Additional benefits: more jobs, lesser migration, lesser imports, higher exports, cleaner environment, avoiding methane flaring, waste treatment, clean energy, freeing prime lands being logged by landfills. So it is a win-win for all opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vashne, for a very, very, very exhaustive presentation on the most important parameter of this hydrogen is from waste. Waste is the biggest problem for our country, and various methods are being adopted to use this waste. We started using the waste for generation of power through steam generator. I think that has not been very, very successful. Let us see how the other usages of waste can be developed so that we can get rid of this problem. Yes, Mr. Bobley, next speaker, you can invite.
Right,
10
right.
minutes.
Thank you,
Ask
sir.
him to give 10 minutes.
Ji. May I now request Mr. Gemini Das, engineer leader in gas turbine engineering, and G is a leader in gas turbine engineering. So may I request for your presentation, Mr. Das?
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all can see me and my presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I got this 10 minutes. Otherwise, I had prepared for 15 minutes. Already, many of you have covered my first part of the presentation. So I want to thank Mr. Bampani and Mr. Popley and Shahi and Mr. Ajay Shankar for covering the need of the hydrogen and the current demographics about the hydrogen. So it's my great pleasure to talk about hydrogen as a fuel in the gas turbine with zero carbon emission. So otherwise, we looked at from GE standpoint of, we look at the gas power generations. So right now, when we take just power generations, we're seeing that 13.7 gigatons of CO2 is emitted. So almost like taking our assets in the currently in different parts of the world, almost 1/3 of that asset is producing the power. It almost contributes to that 1/3 of that 13.7 gigatons of CO2. So taking the decarbonization of the theme inside the company, also taking the insights from the market. So we were looking at what is our current energy landscape. And also this has helped us to redefine our own product portfolios. How do we kind of support zero emission products going forward? So today and tomorrow, what we see from the energy landscape wise, the wind and solar is definitely ramping up. The wind is at 3x speed and solar at a 6x speed. And also we know that there are power generation aspect of it, distribution aspect of it, and how do we kind of manage the overall grid? And also how we bring the advanced techniques, some of the horizontal techniques where like cloud computing, machine learnings and all that through the digital platforms, so that many of the kind of all these techniques or many different way of power generations can be managed in a grid. So, and also the storage and also the pumped hydro, all that comes as a mix. So we have kind of redefined the entire product portfolio to just support all the decarbonization aspect of it, whether it is pre-combustion or post-combustion aspect in the power plant. And also kind of the coal is not in current equations, what we have put here. The similar product catalog is also the same way. So giving more address towards for this today content is about the gas turbine, how it's going to play a kind of central role in utilizing the hydrogen, different form of hydrogen as a pre-combustion solution. So what you all see is that as we defining currently to all our customers that how we can use different type of hydrogen to burn in the gas turbine. And also how do we kind of support the post-combustion aspect, is more of carbon capture. So today for the next 10 minutes is more focused about the hydrogen aspect of it. On the hydrogen, it's a more of dealing with the combustors. The gas turbines are made such a way that the combustors can be plugged out and can be designed and we can put it back from the different type of fuels we want to use. So last 80 years, the gas turbines have faced, they've seen 80 plus combinations of gas, compositions of gas, and also co-firing, the blending, all that aspect of it. So currently the gas turbines is the kind of combustion technology which can accommodate the purpose of burning hydrogen, and also any other fuel comes our way. And gas turbines being the central of at the center of the power plant, we keep focusing on kind of developing continuously the combustion aspect of the gas turbine. I will just touch at a high level. What is that we see ourselves hydrogen as a fuel, and how we kind of accommodate our design, how we mitigate the risk, and what are the countermeasures we do. And also, I will be sharing some more sections about how we have last 40 years, what are the plants is running with the mix of hydrogen, and also how we are pushing the efficiency in hydrogen also to help out the cost outs. If the hydrogen fuel is starting with a higher price, then it could go lesser going forward. But to start with, reintroducing the high efficiency machines will help lower the cost of electricity in the equation. So taking the hydrogen as a fuel, what we see in the high level is how we transport the fuel system within the plant, and also the combustion system challenges, and how the NOx emission challenges. Even though carbon is not there, we have a different other challenges to deal with. Since the volumetric wise, if you compare the hydrogen and methane, so we need a bigger pipes, like 3x type big pipes. And also, when we burn the hydrogen in the room conditions, we will see that the flame speed is 10x, whereas inside the gas turbines, when we put to burn with the environment of compressed air and all that, we see at least a minimum of 3 times the flame speed. And also, kind of it has a kind of high flammability. So 1/3 of the heat source is enough to burn hydrogen. So we need to really focus on the sealing system, leakages system. How do we put all these things together? And also the nitrogen aspect is something like when we are pushing by volume hydrogen, like almost 70% by volume we have hydrogen, then there'll be a 50% we can cut down on the CO2 emissions. Whereas for the NOx emissions, we need to design the system such a way that the NOx doesn't go up. So that's what the NOx is nothing, but it's proportionate to the firing temperature, the NOx could go up. So we are trying to manage the entire combustion system, the mixing of the fuels, to make sure that we keep that the World Bank norms we meet, like 25 ppm NOx, whatever the mix of the gas, with CH4 and hydrogen, how we mix, or pure hydrogen. So there is a kind of need for meeting the NOx emission when we go from here. So taking further step into deep into the combustion technique. Typically, what we see is when we kind of take the hydrogen or any other fuel, we burn near the stoichiometric proportion, which is a complete combustion with the right proportion. What we see is we have a very stable flame, like what we see in the candle, and we also generate high flame temperature, and it ends up in high NOx emissions. That is one of the reasons that we cannot go very further high on the firing temperature. So we need to kind of quench this flame. During the quenching process, we lose the advantage of getting high performance. But in the system, we can inject any type of fuel with a rich mixture, and we can make it work. So this combustor is already been deployed. It has actually burning the composite different percentages of hydrogens without any risk. And only thing is the penalty here is more on the efficiency. So during those times, last 20, 30 years, the team looked at and they kind of came up with a pre-mixed flame approach where the fuel and air is mixed before coming to the burning zone or combustion zone. This is typical, it's similar to our gas stoves or whatever LPG stoves, what you see here. So we have a good, nice blue flame, and it comes up with the low NOx mixing, and also because of the mixing and a lot of velocity variations, the flow variations and all that could drive some combustion dynamics. But overall, we achieve single digit ppm, like 8, 9 ppm of NOx. At the same time, it gives you the benefit of going to the higher firing temperature. Because of higher firing temperature, we can use less fuel per given megawatt produced. So that is advantage. So right now, the thought is that how we bring this premixer technique to the hydrogen, and also go from here, go to the advanced premix design. That's what we are trying to do here. So in the diffusion flame on the hydrogen, we can go up to 90%, 100%, which is already in the field. Whereas here, the pre-mixed, it will be limited by like 20 to 30%. We can go up to 20% comfortably by volume, mixing the hydrogen with methane. Whereas in the advanced pre-mixed design, we can go further. So we started this advanced premix design way back in 2005. The US Department of Energy gave some money to develop the future design. So the team, actually, the GE Gasco team was working on this for more than a decade on developing the further next level of technology, taking from the current combustion nozzle to further go down in a very small holes. And how do we make the burners further effective, and it gives the room for us to burn any type of fuel and also different high reactive fuels, and we can go up. So what you see here is the additive techniques, additive manufacturing techniques, which gave a lot of advantage for us to print very minute, small holes of fuel nozzles. So what you see here is the 5 nozzles here, or 6 nozzles, including the center nozzle, whereas what you see is like 400 plus holes, the 400 nozzles. So it's jumping from 6 to 400 gave a lot of advantage for us going forward. And this is already available in the currently commercially advantage to burn 50% of hydrogen by volume in the present scenarios. So taking just a quick summary on the combustion system. So we are just moving from single nozzle, then we introduce a 6 nozzles. From there we go to the 400 plus. So in a gas turbine there are 16 combustors. So 16 of this kind of combustors. So this is like we are talking about 6,000 plus small nozzles which break down the flame, and we can achieve 25 ppm as the temperature goes up and efficiency goes up. When we talk about the efficiency, with the hydrogen, we can this type of gas turbines can go up to 63% to 64% the achieved products. So if the hydrogen is burning in this kind of products, it gives an advantage for the overall cost of electricity, and also gives advantage of many other operability benefits, and also the speed. We can start the machine quick. And also gives a daily start benefit to integrate with renewables. So quickly, just want to give a snapshot about the applications. Last 40 years, even though we have 80 years of experience in gas turbine, almost like last 40 years, we have seen the request coming with hydrogen as a fuel in the composition in the form of syngas, steel mill gas, and also refinery gas. So we have been adapting some of the combustors across the different products. So what you see here is 100 plus units are right now running as we speak, and it has clocked more than 8 million hours with these blends. And it has been spread across many other countries, and also different OEMs also doing that. So we have almost like we are seeing that by fuel we are like 44% of by megawatt we are able to cover. At the same time as an OEM, we are able to kind of cover 49% the unit count. So there are different classes of turbines we have. We are seeing this. We are trying to push this bar as much as possible. The advanced combustor, what we talked about, 63%, 64%. Efficiency ones, we can hit 50% of hydrogen. It can take easily. And also we are trying to target 100% by end of this decade, like 2030. We can push this micro mixer type of gas turbines to run 100% hydrogen. So there's a quick example. Currently, this is the first Hachi mission right now running and long range energy where they're able to pump 5% hydrogen as blend. And also the China right now going to go for next year the 10% blend with advanced gas turbines. And also the aero derivative emissions, we are seeing that we are hearing that around 30% they can touch in this plant in New York. And also the Australia, we are trying to bring a plus missions, which will start with 5%. But all of this plans has an aspiration to go higher percentage as the hydrogen is available. So these plans are like commercially announced. Already you see a lot of information in the public, how the demonstrations are going on with advanced missions. So with that, just we understand the power generation industry is in transition, and we are kind of revisiting all our portfolios to achieve this low to zero carbon emissions. And also gas turbine is kind of being integral to our power systems today. So multiple technical pathways we are trying to figure out. And combustion is a kind of detachable from the gas turbine. We can redesign and we can put it back. And also 7,000 gas turbines what's there in the field, we can upgrade with these combustors. It takes a couple of months to change the new combustors, and also we have to modify few pipes and the plans to get the hydrogen capability. And it's very encouraging to hear from Mr. Sandeep and also other speakers about the availability of hydrogen, how it's going up. This is all going to help our decarbonization journey, and any other regulations or any other discussion about round-the-clock power with renewables, with gas turbines, hydrogen. It could be a good combination to make sure the grid forming happens in the right way and it helps the grid. So that is the objective, and this is about my content. We have further a lot of information available in our websites to kind of you all to listen to the podcast. But otherwise, I kind of enjoyed listening to all of you more than I presenting myself. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jamni Das, for your very crisp presentation on the way your experience of GE on hydrogen gas turbines and how you're blending hydrogen with gas turbines. So thank you very much. This was really very, we could still make sense out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, all these speakers. You have enriched the knowledge of all the participants about the hydrogen. And I'm sure India will take the lead, be a leader in developing this hydrogen, because we have desire to do that. As Mr. Vashne said, best hydrogen, then all the gas turbines. We have, BHL has a collaboration with GE for producing gas turbines in India. And the hydrogen to be used for gas turbine will be another milestone. So now we are running late. Now we will move to question and answer session and summing up to be moderated by Mr. Sahi, our president. I leave the floor to Mr. Sahi and invite 2 questions, I think, and then.
Thank you, Mr. Bambani. I think we had a very interesting morning, and all the speakers, starting from the chairman of the vertical, Mr. Pope himself, he made a good theme address, followed, I made a few points, and then Ajay Shankar was very comprehensive in his presentation on all the issues, particularly relating to what sort of policy directions should be expected at the government level, what should be the roles of different public and private sector companies, and that was followed by very Acme presentation was excellent. I think that gives a lot of hope. They have done something which is there on the ground. Power cost less and hydrogen and ammonia. That could be, already it is coming in the range of technology when it is developed. The big question comes whether it can be accepted in the market with maybe a little bit of sacrifice in the beginning by the market or by the government subsidy. And later on, it is on its own. We didn't have to do a lot for solar, as rightly mentioned by Mr. Ajay Shankar, that solar mission was launched for the 20,000 megawatt with 15, 16, 17 rupees per unit of power at that time. And then it is on its own. It is on its own. I mean, it has been going down. Market, in fact, sometimes I feel why private sector people and other developers are becoming so aggressive. Maybe later on they get into banking problem, financing problem, etc., etc. Sometimes I do feel that way, that it is so competitive, highly competitive, beyond expectation. I mean, you can imagine 2 rupee 50 paise, 2 rupees 40 paise per unit of power coming down in a period of 6-7 years from more than 15 rupees was like a dream. One couldn't have expected. So therefore, technology development rightly done and given the volume. The advantage with India and also with China, of course, is that volume can be there. And if the volumes are there, demands are there, consumptions are there, then technology development with the cost in the beginning looks prohibitive, but then the market takes care. So many buyers, and therefore price per unit reduces. Hydrogen as a source of energy has been known always, as I said in the beginning. It will continue to be very relevant. It has become very relevant now. And India has taken a lead. Just today, I got a news item. Adani has signed a deal with Total, their partner, to invest almost $50 billion over next 10 years. There is an announcement, $50 billion over next 10 years for producing hydrogen. So that's the, and I was mentioning briefly that a lot of industry houses have come out. Reliance has also come out. Tata have also mentioned. NTPC has also mentioned. Power Ministry and Government of India, they have launched hydrogen mission. So this is the point I was making in the morning, that the commitment is unprecedented type. I mean, not that technology development and research have not been talked in the past. I have been a critic of the way these issues have been handled in the past. But then this time we find a totally new pattern, a new mindset, a new determination to do something, and therefore it will happen. Akvi presentation was an eye-opener, also presentation by Varsane and Doss. So let's have a few questions, 2-3 questions, not more than that, and then we will sum up.
This is Dr. Sharma. I have a question to Mr. Kashyap. It's not a question, but a suggestion, because he talked about the urea ammonia subsidies and all. Now, what actually happens is that the hydrogen which is used as a feedstock for the production of ammonia is to be priced. That's what was his question, and how the subsidies are going to be tackled. Now, what happened in 2014 and passed through for the production of ammonia and urea, for the production of urea passed through in the total subsidy system. So with that, the existing fertilizer plants, their production improved by about 4 million tons with the excessive use of LNG. Now, the policy of ammonia production, as far as the price pass-through for hydrogen is concerned, that should not be a problem with the government. What problem would come up is that if the ammonia produced with the hydrogen from green hydrogen, if that is not cost competitive with imported urea, then there is a problem. Now, basically, government has to formulate that policy that yes, the hydrogen, the ammonia plants and the hydrogen plants have to be designed in such a way that any hydrogen plant which is a captive user of ammonia, then captive user of for production of ammonia, then it may work out. The current cost of production of hydrogen from the gas as well as naphtha is around $4.5 to $5 per kg. But yes, at the current prices of oil. But yes, if we could produce, as he mentioned, that if we could produce hydrogen at $2 or even price competitive with oil or gas, that would certainly work with some kind of discount by the government as a part of subsidy sharing mechanism for production of ammonia, because we are still importing about 5 to 6 million tons of ammonia. So that should be kept in mind while designing a green hydrogen plant. It should be a captive to either a refinery or ammonia plant, so that you don't incur the transportation, logistics, and the storage.
All right, so that's not a question, that's a comment. That's okay. Next.
Sir, I have two things to.
Okay, Mr. Sharma, that's okay. There is your observation, that is okay. Mr. Verma.
Sir, I feel that number one, as you said, which technology is to be adopted, we must come to a conclusion, because the volume we have to handle with reference to this, the technology has to be concluded. So government has to make set up a group along with the concerned people and arrive at a conclusion that what is the technology to be adopted. Because if you talk to the chemistry people, the other day Malti Goyal had an organizer where you got the presidential address. These scientists are saying that hydrogen can be produced from anything, everything is hydrocarbon and all. but no one has arrived at a conclusion with reference to the volume which we need, number one. Number two, sir, if the hydrogen is to be used in the existing coal-fired boilers, ultimately, if it has to come to that, what changes have to be made in the existing boilers have also to be finalized. Because we cannot suddenly fire hydrogen in these boilers. So another subgroup has to be settled, has to be constituted to identify the changes to be made in the existing boilers.
Do you have any particular question to Sandeep? Sandeep is there? Sandeep?
I wanted a response from Sandeep on mine.
Sandeep Kashyap is there? Because ACME presentation brings out that is something which is already being done.
Right.
And that is in Oman. And he made a point that in Oman's case, case of India could be even better because the volume here can be much larger. So that is something, one need not get into apprehensions of what will happen, will not happen. If Sandeep is there, if he can clarify what he said, or otherwise we will get in touch with him separately. So the issue is, when I mentioned that there would be so many options, I also mentioned together that energy profile will consist of everything. Everything will prevail. And market competition, ultimately, maybe beginning you give a prop, like we gave a prop, as Ajay Shankar said, the government policy gives a prop, like RPO is also a prop, renewable purchase obligation, a little bit of higher price regulated by regulators, that is also a prop. And then it is on its own. A transition period should be minimum. And after that, the market should take care. If that happens, in that situation, today you have petrol, diesel, and CNG, all are going together. You have gas, there will be gas, electricity in the kitchen for some time together. And slowly, who takes over whom will happen. So I think you will have enough space for hydrogen, you will have enough space for wind, we will have enough space for a number of other items that will be there. So energy profile will have a dramatic change, a totally different change, all leading toward addressing very solidly and very strongly the climate change issues. So that would be the situation. So therefore, unless it becomes affordable, what could be the path for the government agencies or government authorities to lead that to that situation? And it should be a transition of not many years, because success of solar has given us a lesson that you don't have to carry the burden of subsidy for a long time. It is on its own. Are there any other questions?
I think we should.
Any question to Ajay Shankar? Ajay Shankar made a number of suggestions. Please mute yourself. Those who are not talking, please mute yourself. So, any question, any clarification from him? Malti?
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, all the distinguished participants to this webinar on transition to green hydrogen. We had enlightening discussions on green hydrogen value chain today, sir. And in the light of the green hydrogen policy of the Government of India, let me just add, announced on February 17, 2022, the policy is aimed to create a green hydrogen hub for a target of 5 million tons by 2030, and several facilitating and regulating mechanisms to incentivize green hydrogen production have been identified as a follow-up by the industry. And India is soon going to announce green hydrogen mission. So the discussions are highly valuable today. Let me say the discussion has been very enriching about the future of hydrogen economy in India. And I thank Forum for giving me this opportunity. And I profusely thank our chief guest, Shri Ajay Shankar ji, for giving a potential roadmap for India. And he suggested that we can achieve net zero by 2047 if we succeed in hydrogen, green hydrogen targets. And I would like to say the discussions have been very enriching about the future of hydrogen economy in India. And I profusely thank our chief guest, Shri Ajay Shankar ji, for giving the potential roadmap for India And he suggested that we can achieve the net zero by 2047 if we succeed in the hydrogen production targets. And Mr. Sandeep Kashyap gave a perspective from ACME, and he said that India is placed in a better position with respect to many other countries and has advantage of 24 hours of working, while in other countries just for 12 hours. And Mr. Warshne explained various commercial pathways by producing hydrogen from biomass or waste, and made some policy recommendations for to be adopted. Mr. Jayamani Das from GE also suggested that futuristic use of hydrogen in gas turbine with international examples. On behalf of the forum, I thank all the speakers for taking their valuable time. And I thank Shri R.V. Shahi, President of the Forum, for his observations about how we can manage the challenge and his with hydrogen vision and project management approach he highlighted. I also thank Mr. K.S. Popley, Chairman of the Renewable Energy Group of the Forum, for joining from Canada. It is in the deep night there, and sharing his views on electrolyzer developments for solar hydrogen. So on the whole, the webinar has thrown the light on the various challenges and opportunities for the green hydrogen, which we can face. And it is, and I thank the forum and Mr. Bambani ji for giving me this opportunity to convey my thanks. And the solar hydrogen especially, which is solar chemical energy, and how do we go about it? And perhaps the policy is now moving in the right direction. This is what I conclude from the discussions.
Thank you, Malti,
Thank you.
for a very excellent vote of thanks. I think we close because we are already
we already
late. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. We have
All the best.
at the close of the webinar now.
Okay.
And I think this was a very unique webinar on a topic which is so current. As Mr. Sahis mentioned, so much investments are being planned by the large industrial groups to develop the hydrogen. And I'm sure as we moved on the solar, we will move and jump and run quickly on the hydrogen development. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. And we are not able to offer you a lunch because this is a webinar, but let us hope that we will have soon the physical webinars, physical summits. So thank you very much. We missed the presence of Mr. Shashi Shekhar.
It's okay.
He is the Director General of the association. So I think we will have his presentation if he's possible. Thank you very much. Thank you, and have a nice day.
Thank you.